Yo, welcome to Digital Interactions on the Hacking Your Health podcast with your host, Ben Canning. Yo, welcome back to another episode of Digital Interactions. Today, we are joined by Kevin. Kevin is an OG Hacks member. We have been on a journey also. I think we are, did your check-in this morning, 86 weeks in.
Yep.
And over the past 86 weeks, we are down 64 pounds. And there are many things that we've went through that I think even you could admit that you didn't think that you would ever get to. I think that you mentioned before there were weight targets that you had set yourselves, including things you would do to treat yourself when you got there with no real plan or no real actual belief that you could get there. And here we are and we've passed it. But before we get into that, I think that always the best place to start is tell me about you 88 weeks ago, like before you joined, like what was life like, how are you feeling, and sort of like how did day to day look for you?
Yeah. At that point, life was definitely a lot different, right? It's basically 65 pounds ago, but I think more than that, just the mental aspects of where I was at. I had gotten to a point, I was closing in on my 50th birthday, and kind of there's a certain point of acceptance, like this is how I have to live my life, kind of. And even going back, and a little bit of that was probably a few months in front of that, where I kind of got to a point where I'm like, I determined it doesn't need to be that way, right? And some of it was through seeing some of the other stories. That's when I started picking up and listening to the podcast and starting to just follow the basic guidelines that you and Dave had outlined on the podcast of, progressive overload and trimming the calories and focusing on protein. And, I started to make progress in some areas, but in other areas it was kind of flat. And then, similar to what Monica said, all of a sudden you had the Hacks launch, and I started doing the math a little bit, and I'm like, I think this would work for me. Previous to that, I'm like, I never envisioned being with a trainer, right? This type of scenario, but for me, the Hacks program seemed like it was really going to work. I've always been in the mode of finding excuses of why not to, and I just kind of overcame those and got into the mode and got started and just started cranking it out from that point, right? Just how do I start on the simple things, the big long list of items that come on the check-in sheet, but just taking a few of those at a time and working those and turning those into habits. I think it really turned around my mental perspective of, what can't be done can be done. And a lot of it was just being able to, flip that switch and start the activity, start the doing, and slowly seeing progress. I've been heavy all my life. So to kind of get through to something that was actually making like fundamental changes, getting off of kind of my baseline of where I had been for, the last 30 years, was really, tremendous change. And I think the side benefits that came with that of the change of the mental state, right? Like I said, of getting from thinking of what just can't happen to the things that can be was a big change. I can change my life and change not just my physical life, but my mental life as well.
Good, perfect. Actually, one point that I want to touch on, and if you see me typing, I am. I'm just trying to take some notes because I think there's a couple of valuable things that we can touch on there. The first one is like almost that state of acceptance. I think that you're not alone within that, and I have heard it time and time again from clients, and I would see it quite regularly with people that I talk to, day to day, and I think that there is almost that, like, whether it has been they have tried endless amounts of things and not been able to progress, or it has just been so long that they have been that way that that's just the way that they are going to have to live their life, or whether it's a stage in their life that they're just like, well, I can't make the change now. So give me a bit more insight to that. Like, you had sort of you had got to that stage of acceptance of like, this is just the way that I'm going to live my life now. What did that feel like? Like whenever you're talking about live my life that way, what was that? And then what was the thing that you went, nah, fuck this, I'm not accepting that.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I have 3 young adult children, and seeing a lot of the activities that they had done, growing up through high school, and realizing just the shape I was in, I was not able to participate in a lot of those events, right? They all played sports. They were great, wonderful baseball players, and just not being able to participate, in helping them train, helping them, progress in their sports stuff. A lot of the, just different family activities, right? Where we would take a trip somewhere and they're looking to do, whether it's swimming, right? There's no way I'm pulling my shirt off to go swimming and stuff, and those types of things. So just the items that just I wasn't able to do because of where I was at, right? So again, a lot of it's around family stuff and just the change, or the attitude of, these are things I don't want to do because of where I'm at physically, right? I'm overweight, I'm out of shape. I don't want to do, trips that involve a lot of hiking, physical activity, and how that really kind of cascaded into my work even, right? So I would do my job all day, and at the end of the day, I was mentally exhausted, and I would, which meant I got to chill on the couch, I got to watch TV, I got to check out mentally. And a lot of it was just an extension of being physically out of shape, kind of put me in a spot where I was also mentally out of shape. I was just enduring days and not actually living and enjoying days.
Fair. And I imagine, within that, and even probably looking back, a level of frustration of, I'm not going to say simple, but a level of frustration of the things you've been able to implement that you definitely could have done previously. Like I'm sure there's a level of frustration within that you could have done this sooner and then been able to participate a little bit more throughout.
Yeah, and that's one thing. I always considered myself a smart guy, and it's like, I get this. I'm like, everything, and kind of going back to the check-in sheet, it's like everything in here is like stuff I know, right? It's like, yes, limit your calories, get your activity in, work on, get your workouts in, get your cardio and these types of things. Everything just makes sense, right? But it's just having the extra accountability, the extra, push to kind of transfer that from, getting over the hump of initially doing it to consistently doing it and turning it into habits was just the barrier I could not get through. Kind of like I said, I find ways to talk myself out of things, so easily. It's like there's always an excuse why not to jump into stuff. And then even once I'm there, I get so quick at finding an excuse to stop, right? It's like I've gone through cycles where I've started working out and I'll get like one little injury, one little thing bothering me, and it's okay, let's just take 6 weeks off to heal. And it's like, I'm not doing, it doesn't help, right? It's at the end of the day, because I fall back so far, and then I'm starting habits all over again. That's one of the bigger changes is my mental state of, if I have some type of injury or something bugging me, and I've had a number of them over the last, year and a half, I am finding ways of how can I work around it? How can I work through it? Probably when I shouldn't, but how do I get back to doing everything that I possibly can do to move forward, instead of using it as an excuse of, hey, I just need to take time off, kind of thing. So that's been, I think, one of the biggest changes from a mental perspective is, shifting that attitude, not just from, hey, I can't, to I can and I want to, right? I want to do this. I want to move forward. So, today is I'm off work. It's the day after the 4th of July, July 5th, holiday. I got to the gym. There was nobody there for the first half. I mean, nobody. And one other guy comes in and he's like, wow, I guess everybody's taking the day off. I'm like, but I'm here. I'm not working today, but I'm at the gym. And but my wife too, because I'll let her know what days I'm taking off, and I still get up at 4:30 and I go to the gym, and I come home and she's like, I thought you had the day off today. I'm like, yeah, but I still work out, right? I'm off of work, not workout. So, yeah, I've kind of turned that into certain days where I'm not working. My workout is still what I start with, and I don't see it as something hard to do at times. I see it as this is what's going to get me to my end state, to my goals, and I almost like celebrating it. My last couple birthdays have started with a workout, a long workout session. Now I finish that with steak and eggs for breakfast, but it's all good, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And actually, one thing that I want to touch on that I think is probably something that people need to look into more, but probably one of my favorite things that you addressed so early on. Um, whenever you made the decision to move forward, you were very adamant that you wanted to have the conversation with the people who were directly around you, that you're going on this and you wanted the support of it you want the support of them as you went through the journey. So obviously you spoke to your family members. You also spoke to you people at work in terms of like, I'm going to have this time to myself for training. Give me a bit of an insight to what your thought process is in that. And I guess potentially, I don't know whether you have picked it up or not with other people within the group who haven't necessarily had those conversations. Like, where do you see the benefits that you've had from basically setting the tone right from the start of, I'm doing this, I need your support, or I want your support with it?
Sure. There's a couple parts to that. One is to inform them so they just kind of know what I'm doing, right? So they understand what I'm trying to achieve. Um, in most cases, I wasn't reaching out like asking for help per se or to be held accountable, but I think some of that kind of came indirectly. Because if I come home early from the gym because something come up or whatever, my wife is like, "Are you okay?" kind of thing. She's like, "You're home early," I'm like, "Well, short workout today. I got a work meeting or something, whatever." But a lot of it was just not so much asking for help, especially like family members, but in some ways kind of, hey, just try not to get in my way kind of thing, right? And a lot of that had to do with, help in some ways, again, not necessarily help, but allow me to take this time for myself, realize I'm not doing it to get away from you. I'm doing it so that our time together can be better. The same thing. And then the big item that I kind of was trying to set with the family when I talked to them was around food and meals. And I said, hey, if you put, especially to my wife, I'm like, if you put something on the table and I don't touch it, it's not because I don't like it, it's because it doesn't align, right? And over time, it's like, it's an area I'm like, I'll step up, I'll do more of the food prep, I'll do more of the stuff to make sure it's aligned with what I can eat. And over time, it's shifted what she makes, right? She understands, hey, this is how I can compartmentalize stuff. And it's like, I'm not asking her to cook for me. I'm just kind of asking to not destroy what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with my boss at the time, to say, hey, I want to take this hour so I can, have our community call. I want to structure my work schedule, around, certain, so I can get my workouts in the morning. I want to be able to take some extra time at lunch to get steps in when it's nice, all those types of things. He was absolutely supporting, which is a sign that I'm working at the right place.
For sure.
One thing, but also, and I've talked about it with him a number of times. He realizes like the return on investment from his side, right? He realizes that when I'm working, I'm more productive, I'm more focused, I'm able to contribute at a higher level. Um, and it's something I think that's a sign of a good manager is, recognizing when people want to make investments in themselves, you work on supporting that. Um, about 6 months later, after I started with this, I had a member of my team kind of come to me and see what I was doing and also said, hey, I'm kind of in the same boat. And I really returned, the favor and saying, hey, you do what you need to do. If you need to structure time and do whatever. And he's gone on his own journey and turned around and dropped 80 pounds and fixed a bunch of other stuff. So, and guess what? He's much more focused at work. He's much, more involved when he is. He doesn't have to deal with his back issues so much. So again, it's recognizing that return on investment and in some ways. So, but I think it is just important in general to have kind of a little bit of that side effect accountability group, right? Saying, hey, I'm going to do this. And then now I feel I have to keep doing it in some ways because I committed to them I was going to do this, right? Because I'm doing this not just for myself, but I'm doing it for our family. Um, and it's been all around pretty good. I do get a lot of weird conversations of like, so it's an online workout group. What? How does that even work?
So I get those questions as well. Don't worry. I'm like, how do I actually explain what I do? I don't really know. I guess just a side question on that while it's in my head. You mentioned there that you sort of struggled with your weight for the past 30 some years. How did it feel, whenever the colleague at work there, they came to you almost like motivated, inspired with what you're doing? Like, how did it feel to be that person for someone else?
Yeah, it's really different. I mean, I've had a number of different people kind of ask what I'm doing, but he was one that was really, I think, actually wanted to hear the answer. A lot of people feel disappointed when I don't say, oh, I'm just doing keto, and when I explain to them, I'm like, it's eat less and walk more and get in my my lifts and get in my it's checking these boxes, and it's incremental improvements type of thing, and it's a long haul, and some don't want to hear it. I was really excited when my team member kind of took a very similar approach, right? I mean, his was probably more aggressive on the diet side, but it is really different when people ask about stuff. I get a few different people going on, and and they're like, hey, how'd you get kind of through this hump or through this plateau, or how do you stay consistent with it? And just providing answers. It's like you got to change what you want. You got to put your focus on that. When people say, hey, what are you eating? I kind of tell them, I'm like, I eat whatever I want. I just changed what I wanted. And 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 we've had this conversation too. Of the reality is I've probably eaten better over the last year and a half than any other year and a half of my life. It's just I cut out so much stuff that the instant gratification stuff. I cut out so much stuff that was kind of cheap and easy, replaced it with some stuff that was higher quality, but a lot more enjoyable in the long run. So it's those types of things that I think, just again, it's one little part, one little increment. But even one of the kind of side effects I kind of talked about, with my wife with the food prep stuff and whatnot, she's really over the last 6 months taken a lot of steps just on her own, both literally and figuratively. She walks a ton more and other stuff, and she's been losing weight and getting in shape, and just kind of almost side effect, just kind of by hanging out with me kind of thing, and doing different stuff, and not she's not really focused on it per se, but she's just eating better, more active types of things, and we're both gaining off of it. So
yeah, it's cool. It's cool just to, and I say this endlessly within the chat and all the calls and whatever, but it's cool to see other people around you starting to take action in themselves just by you doing the stuff for you. Do you know what I mean? I would imagine that it's not forced on anybody. It's just almost by seeing you do it and getting a little bit more involved that they better the quality of their life, which is always a cool thing for sure. And I think that we often in ourselves underestimate the power of that and how many people that can impact, whether it's directly with that person that you work with, but then even beyond that, like who do they impact, and essentially where does it stop from that point? You mentioned side benefits there, and you mentioned obviously about the ability to be more active and stuff. Obviously, beforehand and still continued, during the spring and summer months, you're quite active in the garden. Like, so you were always active in those months, but like how has that changed, or your ability to sort of execute on that sort of, from say 2 years ago until now?
It's specifically around garden stuff, it's helped me expand what I do. It helps me to be more efficient and enjoy the time more. I was just talking with my brother yesterday, because I pulled a new book on Audible down to listen for my trip coming up here, but I spent so much time in the garden the last week. I listened to the whole thing, is doing 21 hours. And it's just it becomes, like I said, it's more enjoyable time, because I'm less worried about the physical aspects of doing it, and just kind of more focused on the craft, right? It's like somebody going golfing who wants to walk and not take the cart because they enjoy that part of it, the walk, the whatever. It's part of the golfing experience. It's kind of the same thing I'm going through. It's the work in the garden of doing the different things between planting and weeding and kind of tending and pruning and whatnot that puts me in kind of that mindful state. And because I'm not worried about, hey, now my knees hurt or my back hurts or whatever. And then just, some of the things that are more physically demanding, being able to do them in a way that I haven't been able to do. It's just, like I said, it makes it so much easier, more enjoyable, and, makes me want to continue doing what I'm doing there.
Good, perfect. I would imagine, and I'm not here to put words in your mouth, but just from what you're saying, like almost just actually being able to be more present in the stuff that you're doing and not have a thought of, the struggle to get up or the struggle to move things or carry things, or sort of almost be on a time limit to things because there's at a certain point that it's going to be difficult to move forward with it.
Right. Yeah, and it's being able to put in more time and more, without issue, and not have to sit back and think, okay, when am I gonna carve out my 3 hours of time on the couch to recover here, just to, which seem to be like most nights. Instead, I find myself right now. I find myself working until it gets dark, and then it's like, oh, I need to get to bed because I'm getting up in 2 hours now. But it's all good.
Yeah, good for sure. Okay, so most unexpected thing that you've gained within the past year and a half?
I think, outside of the physical and direct mental stuff, one of the things I think has just been the improvement in a lot of the relationships I have. The relationship with my wife and my family has been really good. The relationship with extended family has been really good. I think because I can be more present, more direct with them. I can do more activities, with them in different ways. And just having a certain sense of, more confidence and more, I guess, more physical endurance in some ways, to do different activities, participate in different things, and have more quality time with the family. And then just relationships outside of that, being more focused, better, present at work. And again, a lot of it's just the mental changes that have happened have allowed me to really establish better relationships at work, that have helped me in my career in other ways. And again, that confidence, it's being able to socialize or work with people, meeting new people at work, and those types of things that I always had a confidence factor that I was fighting because of my weight and trying to figure out, hey, what does this person really think of me, kind of thing. And that's kind of changed dramatically. So I can work with them on a more professional level, and more, it's just, we're kind of straight to business in a lot of ways. And it gives me, again, that confidence to work with them in that way, which has helped me in a lot of my work relationships, establishing new ones, expanding on other ones and whatnot.
Nice, cool, good to note. But before we get into the quick fire questions, I want to touch a little bit more on the goal you set yourself. So how many years ago was it that you set yourself the weight target? And please elaborate on what the rewards options were for whenever you set it.
So I kind of had put one out there, and I kind of was half joking with my wife that, like, if I lose a quarter of my body weight, I was going to get a motorcycle, get a Harley specifically. And it was always just, it'll never happen, right? It's just where I was at, mentally. And then once I started, and we kind of talked about this a little over a year ago when we were in Colorado Springs, and like, I might actually hit my goal, and over time it had changed to that. At that point, I'm at a point in my life, I don't really want a motorcycle. So I changed it to, I'll get a tattoo. So instead I got a tattoo, which I really love. But now I'm coming up, and that was a quarter of my body weight. And then I reset a new goal here. We just set at the beginning of the week, try to get under 200 pounds, which would make 100-pound loss. So then now I've added another reward of getting another tattoo. So hopefully I get that maybe by Belfast. Hopefully by Belfast. So.
Well, actually, not to like completely throw a spanner in the works, but like I do have a tattoo gun. So if you do want me to do it, I'll be able to do it once we get there. But even that, I think that's a good point to note, and I'll not dwell on too long. You know, we caught up earlier this week specifically, and we were just talking about, you know, the next sort of milestone. I'm very much about using sort of timeframes. Is, you know, we'll see each other in Belfast at the event over here later this year. And you said to me, you were like, I would like to get halfway towards my goal for the end of the year. And I let you talk, and you talked for about a minute and a half. And I was already thinking in my head, like, I'm just going to pitch to him on the other side of it. I was like, why don't we just send it and we just push? You know, we've got 12 weeks. I think if we really nail it, you're going on vacation here later on this afternoon, you're away for a week to sort of take some time and then absolutely send it when we come back. So it's good for me to almost be able to give you what the next goals are going to be, so that there's always something to work towards. But it's obviously my job to make sure that you push a little bit more, because I mean, could we hit half of it? Of course. Could we execute it by the end of the year? Of course. But as I've said time and time again, like, I'm up always for building something that's sustainable, that you feel like you can do forever. But also sometimes I'm up for pushing a little bit to sort of see what you're really capable of, like actively going into it knowing it's not sustainable, but we have a timeline and let's see if we can hit it.
Yeah, it's similar to what, you know, I try to do at work with a lot of the staff is setting the stretch goals, you know, right? Put that goal maybe just a little bit out of reach kind of thing, to see, like you said, see how far you can push, what's the level. You know, we talk about at work of having people drink from the fire hose when we onboard them, new people. And it's just like, how much can you handle? And I think at times that's what I need. Otherwise I kind of fall into the comfort grind. I need, what is that extreme goal to force me to check all the boxes, right? In order to hit this, I need to do so much more, right? I've kind of fallen over the last 6 months into a little bit of a casual. And again, we've talked about this, where I've been spending a lot more time, enjoying life in some ways and kind of taking a little bit of a step back. I've been maintaining, but I still have work to do. And I need to go through a phase where I am more dialed in, more focused, and check more of those boxes and check them a little bit harder, and push toward the next goal, the next level to achieve that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, again, another valid point. I feel like you're teeing me up nicely here to all these points, but like we've spoken about this before on group calls, and I've seen it time and time again. You know, whenever we first start, the sort of pain of your reality of what you're in and how you feel day to day is much stronger than where you're at now. And you're now in a position literally that you never thought you would be in, because you set yourself that goal and we've surpassed that weight marker. So you have every right to be able to enjoy that. And there is a little bit on the other side of it. It's like, well, you can quote unquote get away with a little bit more, and you can be a little bit more casual about it and almost get a bit complacent with things. And by all means, I'm up for enjoying those things, but I do think it's sometimes better to sort of like, okay, right, recalibrate and let's send it and push to the next goal. And like we go through those phases of, okay, right, let's push, then we can pull back, enjoy some time, and then we can push again. And like that's literally how we can map out what the next sort of phases look like.
Yep. Yeah. And I think for me, the big thing it has been that while I've kind of stepped back a little bit, like I said, not always checking all the boxes, I haven't regressed, right? I'm still slowly moving forward, right? Continuing to get stronger, continuing to get, a little bit leaner. The overall weight is probably staying pretty flat, but that's been one of my, previous downfalls is I'd have a stretch where I would lose a little bit of weight, and then I would go into reward mode and it would all come back on, right? Yeah. And that's been the big thing for me, is making sure that even if I'm not checking the boxes, I'm not going backwards, right? Yeah. The worst I'm going to do is stay even.
Agree. And I think sometimes maintenance is overlooked. And as I said, the goal is to build this out of something you can feel like you can do forever. And, if you can enjoy life and be doing the things you've been doing for the past few months, like I think that, that's a pretty solid, that's a pretty solid plan for being able to do this longer term. Right. The quick fire questions. And I was joking before we hit record, you have the luxury of actually knowing that this is coming, and you're the first person that will have heard an episode that had been recorded before everybody else. So Avocados or no?
Love avocados. Have a tough time fitting them into my macros. So
That's a fair point. What brand of air fryer do you have?
I don't have an air fryer. I'll probably get some hate for that. I do have a nice convection oven, but in reality, every time my sister's got an air fryer, my brother's got an air fryer, and I talk to them and I'm like, I don't have a need for it, right? I'd rather just use the grill or whatever. So.
Fair. And this is actually funny because there's a lot more people that this is coming up that they don't have air fryers. It's almost a little bit unexpected for me, as if I don't know, because these questions only came after everybody started, so you didn't actually go through this process initially. So I'm still learning a lot. Right, talk to me about oats, cooked or uncooked.
The uncooked oats, always.
Good. That is the correct answer. What is the most absurd health and fitness related advice you've ever received?
That you can't add muscle after 50, right? After 50, you shouldn't be lifting weights because you're just going to hurt yourself. You're just going to, it's too hard on the body type of thing. And in reality, that's when I really started lifting weights of any serious consequence. And I think over the last year and a half, I've demonstrated that you absolutely could and should be lifting weights after 50. You just have to be smart about it. That's all.
Good. I feel like you should, I don't know if you remember who told you that or not, but you should definitely send them a slightly passive aggressive, like, haha, fuck you, I told you so message. If you could only do one exercise for the rest of your life, what would you pick?
Gosh. One exercise, that's so tough because it's like, I'm trying to think of like, what's the full body exercise that's going to get everything, right? One thing that I used to do, like, this is like 20 years ago, was an exercise called the bear.
I swear, as you were saying that, I was just thinking, because you mentioned full body, I was like, I haven't got anybody to do the bear complex in a long time. Maybe we could do that in Belfast, because not one person has said that.
Oh my gosh. We used to do it as a group, and it was an exercise you're blacked out on, but I mean, you get just about everything in there. You get your legs, your upper body, I mean, it's a good fit, and it's something I would do once in a while on my own just to kind of walk through it, usually at light weights, but that would be definitely a good one for Belfast.
Yes, so for anybody who doesn't know what it is, I've just pulled it up so don't fuck up. And I genuinely have not done this since I used to coach one-to-one. I used to use it quite frequently. So essentially, barbell on the floor. So you power clean it up. So you're in a front rack position. You do a front squat down and up into a push press. So bar over your head. Put the bar on your back into a back squat. Again, back squat and up, push press, and then back down. That is a solid one. Like, that is something you actually would benefit from doing forever. So noted on that. That's a good answer.
When I did these previously, you do them in a team of 2. So you do 7 reps and then hand the bar to the other person, and then they would do 7. And then you'd add 10 pounds and you do it again. And you'd basically do that till somebody quit.
I don't know. Knowing the people that within the group and knowing the people that are coming to Belfast, I don't know that that's a good idea, because someone would end up. There's not people who would want to quit within that. They don't want to be that person.
You usually run out of heart rate before you run out of before the muscles give out. So.
That's true. Favorite type of potato? Favorite method of cooking potato?
So, favorite potatoes are probably going to be in a couple of weeks when I go out and dig them out of my garden, and just simple boiled potatoes, new potatoes, little bit of butter, salt, and pepper. Absolutely my favorite.
Nice. Are you willing to share your hot sauce recipe with us on the podcast, or is that top secret?
It's not overly complex. I mean, it's
or what we could say is that you can only have access to it if you're in the community.
Do something like that, yeah.
Okay, cool. Right. If you're describing We Hack Health to someone, what do you say?
Well, I kind of said it before. It's an online. The way I've kind of described it, when people ask me, like, what are you doing, and I'm like, well, and sometimes I say I have a trainer, and sometimes I it wasn't trainer was the word. I'd say, shoot, I forget the term I use, but basically that I have like a consultant type, right? Or a, um, uh, it's definitely different, but yeah, I describe it as like, it's an online community, but it's more than just workout. Total, it's total well-being, right? And that's what I try to get into with people, that it's not just focusing on how much you can lift, or even, how fast you can run type of stuff, but it's how do you build habits? How do you get your mindset properly? Those things, when we start talking about the pillars and those types of things, but it's focusing on all those things, and then just incremental improvement.
Okay, perfect, but not cult.
Kind of not cult.
Okay,
kind of maybe.
What one thing do you wish you knew before you started that you know now? Like, if you could tell yourself 20 years ago, like, what one thing would you wish you could tell yourself?
Start now. Don't wait. You don't have to go through 20 years of misery to start this, right? I mean, that's been my biggest thing is, and that's something I've been pushing with my kids. I'm like, don't fall into it, right? I mean, right now they're all in great shape, all active, all continuing. I was kind of joking with my youngest, who went off to college last year, and they talk about, you get the freshman 15 where you put on your 15 pounds. He put on 15 pounds of muscle last year and just come back in the spring absolutely jacked, because he started working out almost every day up there. So to me, that's the big thing, is do it now. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity. It'll never come. Just jump into it when you can, as soon as you can.
Yeah, I would agree. Any final or closing words from you to anybody who's listening?
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, just be willing to take a chance. Make sure you're investing in yourselves, right? And not just the physical, but the mental aspects. Take time for yourself, and it's something that Dave has said a number of times, that, hey, he's making an investment in himself so that he can then give back. And that's absolutely true. I mean, if you follow the process, you do the hard things, the rest of what you do becomes that much easier, right? And that's, for me, that's where I'm at right now, is just life is so much more enjoyable when you're not carrying around. So I got my bag all packed, and I threw it on, and I was talking to my kids. I'm like, wow, this is going to be heavy to carry around. So I went and threw it on the scale, and it was 24 pounds. And I come back out, and I'm like, okay, so this is just me going to Rome like last year, because that's about what it was. I was carrying around a 24-pound pack on me all the time. So compared to where I'm at now. So, but just jump into it and do it, and make your life easier in the long run.
Yeah, agree. Fair. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for throwing yourself into it. I can say hand on heart that you're one person who has, since day one, been active in the chat, been made sure you've shown up for calls, you have come to events, and I've said this time and time again, there is definitely a stark difference between the people who go into this and go all in terms of immerse themselves in the community and part of the process. And yes, okay, you can do your check-ins and do your workouts and all the other bits and pieces, but there's something to be said that the sort of additional level of commitment to being part of the community, and as you said, being able to give back and share advice and experiences and inspire and motivate others, this is why the community is so powerful. And like, hand on heart, I mention this more often than not, that I think that the reason that we all have the success that we do within the community is because people like you are willing to give back, and it's more about the community than anything else. So thanks for being a part of it. Thanks for taking the time today on your day off. Enjoy your vacation. I'm looking forward to please do send me food photos on as you go. And then I'm looking forward to getting into a new program whenever you return. My wife is there, and she's been sending me food photos, so I got to do some catch up when I get there. So cool. Right. Enjoy it, dude. Thanks for coming. I'll see you in a bit. Bye.